Welcome to Everyday Ethics. This episode continues our conversation on the integrity wheel, focusing on the role of heroes and heroines in shaping character.
Hi, I'm David Morgan.
And I'm Bill Tillman.
And this is Everyday Ethics, a podcast of the T.B. Maston Foundation, where we examine and explore the values and issues relevant to everyday Christian living. Bill, earlier this year, you and I were together at the biennial T.B. Maston Foundation Ethics Award dinner.
Right, in the same place in these United States.
It
not,
was.
Several states apart, like
Yeah.
we're doing right now.
And it takes dinners to bring us together because we are in separate states now.
I will always go for a good meal if you're footing the bill.
That works. Understand how that works. Well, this year the foundation recognized a trio of people for their contribution to Christian ethics. We recognized Rosemary and Charles Wade with the T.B. Maston Inaugural Legacy Award, and we continued the tradition of giving a Christian Ethics Award, this year awarding it to Skye Perryman. You worked with Charles a bit in your ministry. Tell us what you know about Rosemary and Charles.
Well, acquaintance with Charles Wade goes back to probably 1978, maybe. But I had been hired in to join what then was called the Christian Life Commission for the Southern Baptist Convention, based in Nashville, where the hub of the SBC wheel was. Charles came on the board. He at that time was pastor of First Baptist Church, Enid, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Originally, I'm from McAlester, Oklahoma, and we found a bond over common Oklahoma stories. And through the work that Charles did there on the commission, and then later, our conversations kept up as we met at respective denominational meetings. Later, he came on staff at the Baptist General Convention of Texas, where I had served for a couple of years, but he came in as executive director for the Texas Baptist. And then pastor at First Baptist Arlington, a lot of years that we became colleagues, friends, employees together. And one who had done his doctoral work at Southwestern Seminary in ethics. So there was the basis for further conversation. It was later that Rosemary and I got acquainted, and it was at some of these meetings that she was along with Charles. Delightful lady, a former school teacher, but deeply involved in promoting the Christian life along with Charles, her husband.
Well, I met Rosemary when I attended my first board meeting of the Maston Foundation.
Okay.
She was on the board.
Right.
And actually, if I remember correctly, and that's been a lot of years now, your wife Lita was on the board at that time as well.
Yes.
The Maston Foundation has always had women, men. We have worked. We've really not had to work at it because there have been significant women in the history of our work that have served as leaders, chairs of our board, and the like. And that's one of the things I like to mention when I am talking about the Maston Foundation. The foundation this year awarded Skye Perryman our Ethics Award. I first met Skye actually during the process of making the selection. She grew up in the church that I now attend. And I met her one Sunday morning. One of the ladies, actually several of the folks, wanted to introduce me to her because they were so impressed with Skye. Skye is now the president and CEO of Democracy Forward. It is a nonpartisan national legal organization that promotes democracy and progress through litigation, regulatory engagement, communications, policy education, and research. And if you didn't catch all of that, you can find it on the Democracy Forward website. Uh, she has worked throughout her life, even prior to Democracy Forward, to defending civil rights, working with laborers, employees for fair wages. She's worked with healthcare issues throughout her career as an attorney. And the foundation was thrilled to honor her for her leadership in helping us to protect and to expand democracy in the United States. Now, I think this trio epitomizes what we try to do as a foundation, and to some degree what we try to convey in everyday ethics about how a faith-based character can impact our everyday life. Now, Bill, I am this semester, stepping down as an adjunct instructor at the local Baptist University where I teach.
Okay.
Many reasons. One of the main reasons, I want to devote more time to the Maston Foundation as the executive director. And one of the main struggles I have in teaching is grading assignments. Obviously, not my favorite task. I am going to miss conversations with students. And as I think about some of the conversations I've had, some of the early conversations in this semester come from an assignment that I have made. I invite them, okay, I assign them the task of naming 3 people they would invite to a dinner. It would be themselves and 3 others. And then I insist that they share with me why they would invite these people, carry on. I mean, what kind of conversation might ensue from that. But what I've discovered through the years is more and more celebrities are being invited and not people that we would call heroes or heroines. And my wife told me, David, you're always going to be thinking of better ways to do things in teaching. I would now encourage students to distinguish between celebrities and heroes, heroines, and talk about that, which leads me back to the book you have written, The Integrity Wheel. One of your chapters is Heroes, Heroines. And in that, you deal with a biblical passage that was unfamiliar to me. Oh, I'd seen it, but you draw out some thoughts from that. Would you share those with us?
Okay. Yeah, and really 2 passages. It
Okay.
turns out that there are some parallel things in the Samuels, and there's First and Second Samuel, and Chronicles, and in this case, First Chronicles. But in 2 Samuel 23, verses 8 through 39, and First Chronicles 11, 10 and following. But there is the account of David, not yet king, but going to be, and hiding. And battle lines have been drawn between David's forces and the Philistines. And he makes this wistful kind of thought aloud that he wishes he had a drink of water from the well in Bethlehem. And with that, and here's where the narrative takes shape, 3 of what they were called his mighty men. And he had a core about him of 30 plus of these, we would now call elite soldiers. And in one of these passages, there is background given on how each of these attained the category of being, say, the first among the mighty men, things like that. These three overheard David's thought, and as the narrative goes, they broke through the Philistine lines, got the cup of water, brought it back, and ironically enough, David poured the water out, and he gave an explanation for that. But it's from that passage, or those passages, that as well, based on a book that Fred Smith did several years ago. It was called You and Your Network. And Fred Smith was a spokesperson, a CEO, but particularly about leadership. And so between his ideas and mine, the chapter, Heroes and Heroines, one of the spokes now in the integrity wheel, here are traits of these kinds of characters. One, heroes and heroines are real. They're not fantasy characters, but real. Heroes and heroines have a sense of dedication to a cause. And the cause of the mighty men was to get a drink of water for David. But it looks like, and perhaps this is a kind of skewed interpretation, but they saw this as an act of worship. So, for the readers of the little book that you will be posting, as well as these videos, one may need to go back to worship and calling and begin to think about what is worthy to be called an act of worship. Third trait, heroes and heroines have focus. Now, these characters back there, and this was a time of war, hand-to-hand combat, barbaric at the least.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to break through the Philistine lines and come back, they had to have a kind of concentration, a kind of focus. The fourth trait,
Bill,
heroes and
Bill,
oh,
before you go on, you've named they're real, they are dedicated to a cause, and they have a focus. And as you were talking about those, I began to think of that trio that we honored. The foundation did. I mean,
There you go.
clearly, Sky Perryman is focused on democracy, protections, human rights, fairness, and
Right,
other qualities,
right.
and continues to. I mean, she is everywhere all of the time. It seems now on news broadcasts talking about that,
Yeah.
helping us to learn what that means for us in our everyday lives. And then I think Rosemary and Charles, all of the people that they encountered in their lives as they were pastor, teacher, pastor's wife, Baptist executive, uh, there were some real struggles that all of them have experienced simply because of their
Right,
role as pastor. Uh,
right.
and I just wanted to point that out to our listeners as we went through some of these things that, people that months ago I knew didn't know they were heroes really do fit into this category of heroes and
Um,
heroines.
no, it is a helpful outline to begin to
Yeah.
give a mental framing, recognition.
Right. Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry. I just
oh
got
no,
I got
not at
excited.
all. I've got a couple of three more. Heroes and heroines exhibit sacrifice. And you just alluded to
Oh,
struggles. People's reputations get online. Um, and there are personal attacks that come in on people who are visible spokespersons for these kinds of ideals. Another one, heroes and heroines are consistent. And point being, if you were to walk up to those three guys that made that water run, one day, and then meet them some days, weeks, months, years later, you're going to have the same character meet you. A consistency of relationship. And then finally, heroes and heroines are mentors. They are our teachers. Maybe directly by word. We may read from what our heroes, heroines have written, have spoken, or they may have been literally our teachers.
Right.
Now, there is a kind of irony that comes in between the two passages, between First Chronicles and Second Samuel. And it took me a while into life to figure out that Uriah, the man who was the husband of Bathsheba, the one who David ordered to be put in the front lines so that all the bets were on he was going to be killed, taken out, and David could have Bathsheba then. He was one of the mighty men in these lists. In one of the lists, his name appears somewhere up toward the middle. In one of them, he is the very last name.
Right.
And if you have any sense of about how narrativist journalists put columns together, they understand that readership will catch the top of a column and the bottom, the very last lines. That's how people read. And there is the irony for everyone to see. David, the man after God's own heart, he had a man killed. And we should remember that Uriah perhaps fulfilled the role of hero even more than David did. Should ask ourselves then, where do we fit in our relationships? Are we consistent? Do we do this? Do we do that? Heroes and heroines. And that could be the last trait. Do we see ourselves becoming hero and or heroine for others? And you alluded to the idea of having been a teacher, classroom teacher. Well, not for a few people, you have been a hero for them. And fit right in the model. That's what we're trying to get across with this episode.
Well, thank you. And I could easily say the same about you. In the sense that you were a teacher for multiple years.
Yeah.
You never were my teacher directly in a classroom.
No.
But you have been my teacher in conversations for years. And when I begin to even look at the Maston Foundation board, I can sit there and say, didn't that person study with Bill? Wasn't that person at Hardin Simmons when Bill was there? That person's a little older. They were at Southwestern when Bill was there. And I remember a time when you were at Hardin Simmons, I was visiting with one of the lecturers, the Hardin Simmons, the Maston lectures there. And I remember that one of the speakers, it was Emmanuel McCall, one whom you had invited, one whom I think we would consider a hero, one that we would want to emulate in our lives for the sacrifices he made, for the leadership that he bestowed on us. But he mentioned that there was a sense of, he didn't use the word camaraderie or respect, but there was a sense of excitement and connection and enthusiasm and it was focused around Dr. Maston's lecture, the lecture, the T.B. Maston lectures.
Right.
But it was really more than that. And I mean, if we're talking about heroes, it was because of the influence that you had on the folks that were invited and the students at the university at that particular time.
Mm.
And I think it's good to leave our listeners with that notion that you said today. I mean, I feel uncomfortable when people talk about, like as you did, the people I influenced. Okay.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that as persons that people are watching us, whether we're teachers,
yeah,
whether we're parents or brothers or sisters and the like, we can make a difference. And I think if we just remember that from that list that you made, we're real, we're focused on God, we love each other, and keep that important for us, then I think we can begin to at least become the kind of person that others might choose to follow, seek guidance from, seek to learn from us. And so I appreciate you bringing out those thoughts today, and hopefully we can become heroes as well as look up to our own heroes and continue to imitate them as well.
Well, another link, and I'll keep it short, that could be made interestingly past these Old Testament passages. Go to the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, and one of the references, whoever wrote Hebrews, and we don't know, made reference because it's not just an apologetic for Jesus Christ. It's an explanation. It's a reference point. It's an encouragement for those people who lived outside the center places of Christianity, but pointed to Christ as the pioneer of our faith, who's moved outside the camp. Well, lots to unpack there, but that word pioneer can also be translated as scout, hero, those kinds of ideas, moving ahead, giving the example. So back to on how you're about to close our episode, I think, is another reference to how did Jesus project an ethical life, and that we follow in those tracks. So,
well, yeah, he gave us the example.
Yeah.
Others in our lives have embodied that example. And I could list multiple others, but as you said, it's time to draw us time together to an end today. We could list our own set of Hebrews heroes as well.
Yeah, and we could leave the viewers and anyone that may pick up on reading the little book, but who are their heroes and heroines?
Exactly.
Who have been, who are becoming that. This can be an action project.
Sure can. And we remember what they've taught, and we remember their influence.
Yeah.
And well, next week we can chat about memories, the next spoke on the wheel, and the impact that those memories have on us.
Do you feel the spokes beginning to?
We're turning and we're moving, and I like that. So, well, until next week, then, remember, Jesus went about doing good. Those who follow Jesus walk as he walked. Thank you, Bill.
Well, thank you.
Everyday Ethics is brought to you by the T.B. Maston Foundation, which seeks to proclaim the abiding relevance of the whole gospel of Jesus Christ and provide support for the study and application of Christian ethics. For more information or to donate, visit tbmaston.org.